Take a person, take a story, take you on a journey. It's your take.
On today's Your Take, I talk to a family and children's entertainer who performs a mixture of magic, music, and comedy. He's been described by comedian Ben Elton as the king of all things silly. My guest performed his first gig on New Year's Eve 1995 and spent over 20 years performing at Center Parcs. He's gone on to appear on a number of television shows, including The Big Talent Show with Jonathan Ross, How Do They Do That?, The Big Breakfast, and Britain's Got Talent. He's performed at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, recorded 4 albums of children's music, performed on BBC's Crackerjack, and starred on BBC Learning Zone's Let's Do Maths. My guest today is Nutty Noah, or Noah Kelly, who talks to me about his early life, his act, his career, and of course, his future plans. Lovely to see you.
And you as well. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure. Good to see you.
Wave. Hang on. Start off with a really bad joke. Sorry.
It got me laughing. I like that. It caught me by surprise.
Oh, good. Good.
No, thank you kindly for joining us for Your Take. I'm looking forward to talking to you about being an entertainer, particularly entertaining for families and children, and talking about your kind of career journey. But obviously wanted to start off from the very humble beginnings. I just want to kind of start by asking where you were born and just painting a portrait about your upbringing and a little bit of just detail about the family home and who your parents were.
Right. Okay. Well, so I was born August 1970 in Bristol, but lived in Weston-super-Mare. And I had just a typical, well, I guess it was just a typical upbringing, really. Just had an older brother, younger sister, yeah, just sort of knocking about, really, as kids do. So my mum and dad split up when I was very, very small. So I don't really remember my dad being around, but then I do have a good relationship with my dad and always did. So it was, I guess, just sort of typical sort of mixed family sort of thing going on. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So
I wanted to talk about your school years and kind of ask you to start with what kind of subjects you excelled in. Did you like school? And from those early days, did you have a particular flair for creativity and creative subjects?
So again, with school, it was all fairly mediocre, really. I didn't dislike school, but then I didn't really love school. If I excelled in a subject, it was always more of the sort of creative subjects. So I was quite good at art. Didn't really like sport, and just sort of wafted through, really. But yeah, I didn't really excel, or I was just kind of in the middle, like just sort of there at school. I mean, obviously, I spent a huge amount of my time just messing about, and I know a lot of people say, "Oh, it's, I've seen it in sort of parents these days when they say, "Oh, my kid's just too clever, that's why he's messing around." It's like, that wasn't the case with me at all. I was just messing around. Yeah, I just wanted to get to the next sort of lesson that would be fun. And if the lesson I was in wasn't fun, I would try and sort of make it fun, if you see what I mean. And that was it all the way through school, really.
I can identify with that in many ways, particularly on the creative side. But obviously, music and magic form an integral part of your act, and we'll talk about that later on in the interview.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you initially, when did you start becoming interested in music and performing music and performing magic tricks, and which instruments did you learn initially, and what kind of magic tricks to start with were you performing?
Right, so I came into both magic and music like incredibly late in comparison to a lot of people. I think I was 18 when I discovered music, and then probably about 20 when I discovered magic. I've always enjoyed music when I was growing up. A couple of times I think my mum was worried about me because she would come home from work and I'd be, I don't know, maybe 10 or something like that, be glued in front of the telly watching an opera. But absolutely mesmerized by it because it was just the most amazing thing ever. And I think she thought, what's he doing? Why is he watching that? You know, and I was just absolutely transfixed. But I didn't really put two and two together or anything like that. I just thought, wow, this is amazing. You know, occasionally I would tap out a rhythm like on a countertop, and I would have this one particular rhythm that I always used to tap. And I always said, oh, if I write a song, I'm going to use that as the rhythm. But again, never really thought anything of it and never really actually pursued I didn't actually think you could write a song. You know, I just thought it was something someone asked you to do, and then you had to do it. I never realized that, try it, write a song. So it wasn't really anything that came with me from an early sort of age. When I was much younger, I was much more into just getting on my bike and going out for adventures and stuff like that and being outside. Yeah.
You mentioned your kind of schooling years, and you mentioned you kind of, didn't particularly enjoy it maybe as much as you could have done. But obviously things kind of changed when you went on to study at Weston College. You went on to study performing arts. Would you say it was around that time where you noticed you had kind of a natural skill, you were creative, you were putting on performances and plays? Was it at that point where you thought, maybe I could pursue this as a kind of a career path?
It was actually the summer before I went to college. And what was I doing? When I left school, I had huge amount of jobs, just like rubbish. Well, you can't say they're rubbish jobs because all jobs are fantastic. But for me, they were just like, one was working in an office and it was like, no, I can't stand it. One of them was working in a warehouse. It was horrible. I worked in a pet shop and it just stank. But actually, to be fair, the pet shop one was quite good fun. I worked at the Odeon in Weston. That was an amazing job. But that was after I'd been to college. But then I also, I had a friend that worked on the pier in Weston. And he said, well, why don't you try that? Because I just can't find a job that I enjoy. And he said, well, we'll work on the pier with me. I was like, all right, okay. So I got a job on the pier, and for whatever reason, they put me on calling bingo. And for me, it was just perfect, because it was like I said before, I've always been showing off. I've always been trying to make people laugh. And then to stick me on the bingo with a bunch of other lads my own age, just having a laugh, calling bingo, was hilarious. It was absolutely fantastic. And we just used to make things up, and it would be amazing. And I think the takings in the bingo when we were on it were like through the roof, because we would just be having so much fun with it. We used to have a baker's dozen game, where every number we'd call would be like a baker's dozen, number 12, a baker's dozen, 56. And of course, all the old dears would be getting furious because your baker's dozen is 13 or something like that. And so then really enjoyed that, because there would be people that would come sort of towards the end of the summer, and they'd be like, just be coming to play the bingo just to listen to what we would get up to and for what we would say. I thought this is fantastic. And then one of the other guys on the bingo, he said, well, I'm going to go to college and I'm going to they did this really good performing arts course. And I think I'm going to try that because I think it would be great fun. And then maybe, I could become like a redcoat or something like that and have a career in show business. And I just thought, that's a great idea to be able to learn how to do what we were doing on the pier professionally. Just sounded like, oh, this is fantastic. Yeah, I'll go for that. And then that's what I did. I just signed up for the college course. It was the first year. Oh no, what was it? No, I had to do a year of GCSEs because I don't think I had high enough grades from school. So I was going to do drama. I had to do maths and English, and I decided to do arts because I was quite good at arts. I was going to do drama because obviously that was the one thing I wanted to do. They said do a year of drama and then you can do the BTEC course, which is a 2-year course. And then I had a spare slot in the timetable, and the guy that does the music at college said, well, look, Noah, why don't you try music? You're doing art, you're doing drama, try music, you might be good at it. I was like, oh yeah, okay, fair enough. So I tried that, and I have to be honest, from the very first lesson, I was absolutely hooked. And it was like an absolute, what do they call it? Not a utopia, an epiphany. It was an epiphany. It was like, oh my God, you can actually do music. It's just amazing. And then the tutor, the college teacher, I don't know what they call them, not professors, are they? But he was amazing. His name's Andy Collier, and he's like one of those musical geniuses that you can, he can read a piece of music instantly. Sight reading skills were off the scale. His ear was off the scale. You only had to hum something and he'd work it out for you. You play him a record and you'd say, right, okay, this is the root note. Now you need to go to here. That's your second chord. And he was absolutely phenomenal. And with composing stuff, he knew everything about everything and was really, really helpful too. So it was kind of really encouraged you to sort of get the best out of yourself. Whilst, and it wasn't because, music lessons at school were fairly, my name's Bob and I play the triangle. And it was just like, it's so dull, it's so boring. But whereas at college, they made the music lessons like exciting and new, and it was like, oh my goodness. And then from there, just haven't really looked back.
You mentioned about not looking back. I wanted to talk about the big breakthrough. If we turn the clock back, I think it's 25 years back to the mid 1990s. New Year's Eve, your first gig, 1995 at Center Parcs.
Yeah.
Can you recall how that gig came about, and what are your recollections and memories from that first performance?
Yeah, so through the college, when I did the first year of music and I was then into the BTEC side of things, a magician, an illusionist got in touch with the college saying, I need people to help in my act on a part-time basis. I'm trying to get it up and running. Do you have any students that might want to sort of help with that? And I was like, well, yeah, I'd give that a go. It was a paid gig, working in holiday centres and things like that, just pushing and pulling props. And so I gave that a go, and it was for the guy who now does Sooty, guy called Richard Cadell.
Oh, right, okay.
And over the course of a few summers, we did some summer seasons and some sort of pantomimes, and they were brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then one particular summer season, it was a variety show in Weston at the Playhouse with the Barron Knights, a singer called Nikita Scott, and a magician, like a comedy magician called Neil Austin, who is just one of those insanely funny people that can just, walk on stage with a little suitcase of props and do just crazy magic stuff that's absolutely hilarious. And then usually with those kind of gigs in the bar after the show, everyone hangs out for a bit before going home. And Neil would be doing some sort of card tricks. And it was like, Neil, how are you doing that? This is crazy. Show me again, and show you again. And it'd be like, this, and it's a normal packet of playing cards, yet there's a whole world of mystery inside them. So it was like, this is crazy, Neil. I don't understand it. And I was like, can you teach me some? And so it was like, so he taught me some. And then that was like my second epiphany, because then it was kind of like, oh wow, this is fantastic too. You know, the music, the magic, card tricks, absolutely insane. And so he gave me a book and a packet of cards and said, go away for a year, learn this book, and then let's see where you are. And so I did that. And whilst I was doing that, I was working at a bar in a hotel in Weston, and like every Wednesday evening they had this guy come in with a really old organ and play old tunes for the dears and stuff like that. And he was old himself, and you know, he had like a hat, and his costume or his clothes were all a bit shabby. But in his break, he'd come up to the bar and I'd practice magic on him, and so, hey, I'm doing a trick. And then he said, oh, I'm an agent and I do a showcase. What you should do is come to my showcase and do a couple of magic tricks, because you might be good enough to get a couple of gigs. And I was like, all right, okay. But didn't really think anything of it, because he was such a scruffy little bugger, and his organ was crap and his playing was crap. And he couldn't hold a tune. But, you know, so he gave me the details of this showcase. And I obviously, I think at the time I was 20, but I was very young 20, never really been outside of Weston. So I got the address, Riviera Centre in Torquay. All right, okay. And then I don't know if you've ever been there, but it's this massive, it's a massive conference centre in Torquay. Okay. So I turn up and it's like, he's hired all of this. What a loser. And I go inside and it's just teeming with like people, and you know, the guy was there all dressed smart, and it's like, okay, no, this is what we've worked out for you. If you do some of your card tricks over on this table, and this table, we reckon you do quite well out of it. So I was like, okay. And whilst all this is going on, probably about 2,000 people all watching different acts on the stage, and they'd have a break, and then that's when people could go and do sort of table stuff, which I was one of. And then so I did the 3 tables, and instantly each of the tables was like, wow, this is amazing. We've never seen anything like this before. You have to work for us. And I was like, okay, great. Who are you? And
when do I start?
Well, yeah, and it was like that, because I was just like, all I was doing was what I'd been practicing at home, but in front, to other people, and they were like, and so then the first person was the entertainment controller for Center Parcs, and then the second table was the producer of the TV show Talking Telephone Numbers. I can't remember who the third one was for, but those 2 people instantly were like, boom, we want you, and we want you now. And then so I found myself, well, I think the Center Parcs gig didn't come around until the New Year's Eve, but within like 2 weeks, the Talking Telephone Numbers producer had me in the studio in Wembley, the Fountain Studios in Wembley, doing card tricks to Emma Forbes, Philip Schofield, the Beach Boys, Status Quo. They did Status Quo and the Beach Boys got together for a while and did a little tour, and it was them. And it was like, and then I'm there doing these card tricks. I'm like, I've only decided I was going to be a magician like a week or so before this gig at the showcase, and suddenly I'm on the telly, and it's like, this is nuts.
All quite surreal, I'd imagine.
Well, yeah, but it was really, I wouldn't say it was, well, it was surreal, but it was kind of like, all right, okay, so yeah, this is what you do. You know, you decide you're going to do something and you go out and do it. And when you go out and do it, you get the gigs and blah, 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 blah. Of course, what I didn't know is that there were magicians that have been close-up magicians that have been writing to these TV shows for years trying to get on there, or they've been writing to Center Parcs, say, oh, I do magic too, and it's kind of like, here I am, I've just decided I'm going to be a magician. I go to this showcase, and then two weeks later, I've got the gigs that everyone seemed to have wanted. I didn't realize that because I wasn't really part of any kind of magic community. And I forgot what I was going to say, but it was, yeah. I mean, I guess it was surreal, but
I want to talk about live performance because you performed for over 20 years at Center Parcs, and I kind of just want to ask you about that experience of performing, that buzz and thrill to a live audience, but also ask you a little bit about the audiences you performed to and what experience it led you on to, what other opportunities came from doing that resident Center Parcs gig for the best part of 2 decades.
Yeah, so it was, I think, invaluable starting off doing, so they had me doing table magic first at Center Parcs, which I think was like crucial to the development of myself as a performer, because it really taught you to interact in an entertaining way on a very minute scale, in the sense that it could just be 2 people at the table and you got to present yourself and do a little show for these 2 people. Or it could be a table of 20 and then you got to try and do the same thing, but for 20 people. It taught me an awful lot about interacting and improvisation, and sort of banter, things like that, because, people would interrupt. They'd interrupt at crucial moments in a trick. Sometimes they'd interrupt at a point which would lift the whole experience because it was just the most perfectly timed heckle, maybe, or something like that. And so you had a lot to deal with and a lot to sort of focus on. And I think I learned easily that people will like you if you're you. There were a lot of entertainers I knew at the time that were doing these close-up magic shows, but as a character. And I think it would be very easy, and I've seen them struggle if they get that heckle or if they get that interruption at the wrong time. They don't really know how to deal with it because, their character has this strict, they've got to follow the story right from the beginning right to the end. And
it's almost like breaking performance. It's almost like coming out of character then, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they can't deal with that in character, they have to come out of character, and then it's like, you're not that chap, you're this chap. And so I thought I just wanted to be myself and be like honest with the audience. And sometimes, at the start, I'd be like, look, I've only just got this gig. I only just decided to be a magician, but they've told me I've got to come and do shows for everybody here. And help me out, if you're enjoying it, laugh a bit louder than you normally would, or anything like that. And people loved that because they felt like, you were letting them in a little bit, and like you're coming on the journey with me. And I think if you can engage with people like that, people take that away. And then what was happening was then the opportunities that would come from that would be that, people would remember that if they're having an event at home, or, or if they're an organizer of events, they're organizing an event and they want something a bit magical or engaging for their customers or for their guests, they would often phone me and say, well, what are you doing on this night? Because, what you did with us, it was so special and it was just brilliant. And we want to recreate that over here. And it just snowballed. I've never really ever had to advertise because, that one dot, I always think of the gigs as like a dot on a page. And from that one gig, a little line came off and got another one. And then a line came off, 2 lines came off that. And then it just, and it's just sort of spread like that. And I've been very lucky. Some of the opportunities have been, wow, yeah, sort of mind blowing.
We'll progress and talk about opportunity. You've already touched on live performance and being on stage and performing to audiences. And I wanted to touch on the television thing, because you've already spoken about rock royalty, appearances on television. And in the 90s, and I can quote so many television shows, particularly talent shows, you performed on The Big Talent Show with Jonathan Ross.
Yeah.
Takeover TV, How Do They Do That with Des Lynam? That was a BBC big primetime show, Talking Telephone Numbers. And of course, we loved it back in the day, The Big Breakfast.
Yeah.
What was it actually like performing in front of the camera, whether it was pre-recorded or live broadcast? And what are your standout moments from some of those TV gigs that you did back then?
So I remember it being absolutely 100% petrifying. From the minute I went up to do a cold audition at the Salador offices for Talking Telephone Numbers in London, and that went really well, and they were like, yep, you're on the show and it's next week. And I just remember from when they said you were on it, I was just like, oh, poo. You know, it was a dream come true, but at the same time it was like, oh my God, I'm going to be on Talking Telephone Numbers. I love Talking Telephone Numbers, but I'm going to be on it. And so I caught the bus up. I got the Bristol Flyer. I didn't realise that they were paying expenses, so I could have got the train. But I got up at like 5 to get on the Bristol Flyer. I could have even had a hotel. I never even realised that. You know, I could have just said, "Oh yeah, can you book me a room in a hotel?" But you know, I was super young. So get to the studios, and I'm disappointed because TV studios are really small in real life. Yet on the telly, they seem like, wow, it's so big. But it's kind of like,
it's amazing what cameras can do.
Yeah,
scale, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the lens on the camera is what makes everything look so big. And then they just throw you in at the deep end. And I don't know if it's a trick by TV companies. I don't know how else they would do it. But no one really gives you any advice or gives you any tips or anything like that. It seems to me that if you're good on the telly, you're naturally good on the telly. But I found it confusing because they had the presenters that I was doing the trick on, Emma Forbes and Philip Schofield. But then he also had the cameras that were kind of sort of 6 foot away with all the people at home watching. And then they had a studio audience about 20 foot away that was full that were also watching. And so it wasn't anything we did at college. It wasn't anything I'd ever learned. It wasn't anything I'd ever knew about. But it was like, who am I performing to? I have absolutely no idea who this is for. Whereas before, I'd always been focused on, I know exactly who this is for. This is for you because I'm doing this trick with you, and we're interacting. And whether it's the one person, the 2 people, or the group of people, it was always one focal point. And so then to be faced with 3 different focal points, it was like, So, and my hands, the video of me on Talking Telephone, and you can actually see my hands like really shaking and this is the card you chose. I was absolutely petrified. And I don't know if I came across okay or if I did a good job. I don't know, but it was all, but it's one of those things. It's like over within like a blink, and it's like, you know, and then the adrenaline rush goes, and you sort of like relax, and you think, flipping heck, I need a drink or lie down for a bit. But it's very different performing for TV. But it was from that opportunity came the Jonathan Ross's talent show, which was proper live. I don't know if they'll let me tell you, but Talking Telephone Numbers wasn't actually live. Some element of it was, like the competition element of it was, but the acts and stuff like that was all pre-recorded.
Okay, yeah.
But then I got invited onto the Jonathan Ross's big talent show, and that was proper live. And that was like proper live, proper Saturday night, proper live. And it was like, oh, here we go. And I felt much more relaxed with that one. And I'll tell you why, it's a weird thing. It's the lighting on the second show. On the Jonathan Russell show, it was really odd because the spotlight was boom, right in my face, which meant I couldn't really see much other than what I was doing at the table and with the person I'd asked out of the audience to help me. And I think that went better. And then from that, other opportunities came, but it was kind of short-lived. I think after the big breakfast, that was pretty much it. And then I was back to Center Parcs doing the shows there, which is great because it was fantastic shows to be able to do.
I want to move on and talk a bit about music because, like yourself, I share a love of music and love to listen and play music as well. But it's kind of an integral part of your act as well. And you play so many unusual instruments, one of which we can see in the background.
Yeah.
I just wondered if you could tell us about some of the instruments you use in your act and just tell us a little bit about kind of the sounds they make. Because I was looking at your YouTube channel only the other day and there's some incredible covers that you do with
great.
some of these crazy instruments. So just kind of wanted you to give us a little bit of a lowdown on some of these instruments and how they were created and kind of the concept behind all this.
All right. Okay. Well, so when I first met my wife, I was doing initially I was doing the close-up magic, the close-up stuff. And it was all quite serious and more sort of adult orientated. And then when I met Tony, she was a nanny in London and said I had this kind of natural affinity with kids, which I did. I knew I always walk into a room, I'd see a kid who could make eye contact, poke your tongue out and make the kid laugh and stuff like that. So I was always sort of doing that and sort of just being silly. And so she said I should put together a show for kids. And so it's kind of like, okay, let's give it a try. And again, that was kind of like one of the best things ever because it was kind of like incorporating my natural silliness with the magic. And it was just brilliant. So I created a show for kids, a magic show. And then I was kind of thinking, well, I remember writing a song about a frog that got ran over in the road. And the chorus is just the word squidgy repeated over and over and over again as the frog's being squashed. And I wrote that with a friend, Richie B, my best mate. And I thought, well, maybe I could add that to the show to sort of break up the show from all the magic and the tricks, just to add an extra dimension. And it worked really well. I got a keyboard and sort of played it in the show. And I thought, I need to, no disrespect to Richie B, but it's kind of like, I want to write a song myself that I can use in the show. So it's like, well, what can I write songs about? So I started writing more songs and more songs and more songs. And then the music side of it just became almost as big as the magic side of it. And so then I've always enjoyed how much humor music can add to an experience. Like, obviously music can be very emotional in a sad way, but with sad songs, but I'm more interested in the fun side of music. And I used to love things like the It's a Knockout theme tune, or I can't remember, just like silly jazz sort of things. And I remember seeing a chap on a TV show when I was probably about 10 it was a Chris Tarrant TV show where he'd take the mickey out of European TV shows. It was quite late at night, if I remember correctly. And there was this guy playing some horns that were facing downwards, and it was just like absolutely bonkers. I absolutely loved it. But then I kind of parked that in my brain. And then at the time when I was sort of like writing the songs for the kids show, Harry Hill did his Hooves tour and had a rack of horns that he was playing in the show. And I was like, oh my God, I remember this from when I was a kid. This is amazing. I wonder if I could get one of those and use it in my show and then sort of like lift the show up a little bit by being absolutely bonkers. And that's what you can see behind it. It's a hornophone. And it took me about 6 months to find because they're just not available. And they don't really have a name. and there's not like a shop you can go to that sells
So
weird musical
you
instruments.
could do a search on eBay or anything like that then?
No, nothing. And it was like, and then eventually I found all the music shops, I found all the music universities. I phoned like Rally, they do the bikes, they do horns. So I was like, any chance you could make me up some that make a note? And they were like, mate, we just chuck them together, and if they make a noise, that's it, they go on sale. So it was like, and then I found an orchestral hire company in London, and they kind of like hire timpanis and expensive musical instruments that perhaps people don't physically own, but they know how to play. If a timpanist may not have a set of timps at home, he might just hire them in. The orchestra might hire them in for the gig, and he goes and plays them. I don't know. So I phoned them up, and they were like, "Oh yeah, there's George Gershwin uses 4 of those kind of horns in his Rhapsody in Blue, or one of his." I was like, "Okay, where'd you get them from?" And he was like, "Well, there's this place in Stuttgart that we got them from. Maybe you could give them a call and see if they'll make you a whole set." And so luckily, that's how I managed to track them down. But it was crazy, and it was at the time it was £5,500.
Oh wow!
Yeah, and it was kind of like, I asked a few people, and everyone that was sort of working as a entertainer was like, "Nah, I would never spend that on a prop. Never. That's just ridiculous. You'll never get your money back on that. It's pointless." But then everybody that knew me was like, "You have to get it. You have to, because it's you." And so it's like, "Oh right, okay." So so I got it, put it in the show, and it's so loud it melts all the kids' faces. It's just brilliant. And I'll give you a blast if you like. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course you can. I'd love to hear it.
I don't know. When's your birthday?
My birthday's just gone, just turned 40. And that was back in September.
Well, we'll pretend it's today.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is for you for your birthday.
I love that because you even got the name in there as well.
Yeah, I did.
Very clever. That's brilliant.
I did fluff it though.
The first musical piece on Your Take, and I enjoyed that immensely.
Oh no, thank you. So it was kind of like, well, that's quite loud. If I'm doing a kids show for like 15 kids, that's gonna like blow their brains out. So I thought, how can I get something like that that's a bit quieter? And then I was introduced to a guy called Michel Loisier, who's a French Canadian who's just a genius with like novelty music and homemade musical instruments. And that just opened up a whole new level because he was doing the horns, but he had an orange jumpsuit on with them attached, and how he danced would be how he'd play a tune. And it was just amazing. You should try and get him on your show.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, good recommendation.
Absolutely. And so then it made me think about different instruments and what you've got lying around and things like that. And the kids had a toy which made a squeaky sound, and then we managed to pitch that, and then I put them in little sort of socks on a jacket so I could do like the Michel Loisier thing. And then it was just like, people were like, "This is brilliant. This is fantastic. We've never seen anything like this." So then it was kind of like the whole thing was snowballing, and it was getting out of control. And it was just like, So then I added handbells, and then I thought about the horns are great, but it's a very staccato kind of note. So if I want to play, I'm very limited to what I can play, because you can't play a long note because you've only got that. So I had tuned cowbells made, which then sits on top of that, and then you hit with drumsticks, and then of course you can play anything you want to then. And that's how then the TikTok and the YouTube stuff started coming about, because yeah, I just wanted to do sort of more silly stuff with it, and it's brilliant because it's so funny.
You mentioned silly stuff. The comedian Ben Elton described you as the king of all things silly.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, how would you describe your act? And I just wanted to also ask who your influence are in music, comedy, and within the magic circle.
Yeah, so I'm really not very good at describing my own kind of show because it's just kind of me just messing around and being a bit silly. So
Yeah, and you just do it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's nice for other people to describe me as things like that. But I would just say it's just magic, music, and mayhem. But I forgot what the question bit was.
Yeah, the other question, and it's a question that, you know, is kind of the go-to question to ask somebody about their kind of influences. But who would you say in music, in comedy, and within the magic circle have kind of been a key influence on you and your act as well?
Yeah. So definitely my like initial influence would be Neil Austin. He was the stand-up comedy magic guy in the variety show that gave me the tools to become a close-up magician and a magician entertainer. So he's at kind of the top of the list, and then underneath that, I'd say, you know, for the music, definitely the teacher at college, Andy Collier. I mean, as far as other inspiration and influences go, and I love the music of Elton John, Billy Joel, Dire Straits. I say that knowingly because you had David Knopfler on your
Yeah,
show.
David Knopfler.
And yeah, it's just, but it's just like it's more sort of piano-based sort of stuff because piano is my sort of musical instrument I love the most. So I would say those would be the influences. So if I'm writing a song now for kids, I'm always trying to think, ooh, what would Elton do? You know, I don't know. I never get anywhere near close, but you know, I like to try and mix it up. He likes to add sort of chromatic chords into some of his songs. You know, like a passing chord that's got like a chromatic edge to it. That it's just, oh, I like that. That's so cheeky. And then sort of try and sort of do that in my songs as well. Which you know, if they work, they work. If not, then people still like them.
Again, I wanted to go back in time and go back to 2003. I wanted to ask you, whatever possessed you to come up with this parody called the Frozen in Time stunt by the illusionist David Blaine, that you performed, back in 2003, encased inside 16 blocks of cheddar cheese. Tell us about this kind of media publicity stunt and kind of the attention that it kind of gained at the time.
Yeah, so I'd obviously been working as a close-up magician for Center Parcs since 95, 96. And then I met Tony and she said about doing a kids show or a family show. And so I was ready to launch Nutty Noah because Neil, my friend, he did a family show as Nutty Neil. And he said, right, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. And I was like, right, okay, in honor of you then, can I be called Nutty Noah to do that? And he was like, yep, okay. So I was ready to launch it. And I thought, right, okay, so I need to reveal myself to the world as this new entertainer. I need to do a publicity stunt. I've always thought that publicity stunts are fantastic tools to get free publicity, which otherwise would cost an absolute fortune. So if you've got a quirky kind of idea, then they'll go with it, you know, and then you can get quite a lot of publicity. And so I was thinking, like, I need to launch locally so that we have the Western Mercury in Weston. And how can I get into the Western Mercury? And I was just thinking, well, what other stunts are magicians doing? You know, what do other people do? And then it was just after David Blaine had done the Frozen Time? No, what was I don't know what the ice thing was, but he did.
I think it was Was it Frozen in Time? Yeah.
It was Frozen in Time, isn't it? Yeah. And I thought, that's just cheesy. You know, anyone could do that because ice is quite well insulated. He had a massive hole in the top, so it was like air can come in, and it's kind of, I don't understand. That's not an endurance thing. That's just cheesy. And I was like, oh yeah, cheesy. I could do it in cheese. And it was literally just that. It was just like, I could do that in cheese. And I thought, well, actually, maybe I could. And so I ran it by Tony, and Tony's a great barometer for things that are funny, because if she laughs, you're on to a winner. It's quite hard to make her laugh. And she was like, yeah, it's really good. And so I thought, okay. So it was in the times of looking up on the yellow pages, and there's actually a cheese marketing board. There's a cheese board of Great Britain. So I phoned them up, and they were like, oh yeah, this sounds like a good one for so-and-so, they're in your area, give them a call. Okay, so I gave them a call. I said, I got this idea for doing this. Might need a lot of cheese to pull it off. Can you help? And they were like, yeah, sounds like a great idea. No problem at all. And then put the phone down. And it was like, within a minute, like these two conversations had happened. And it was, hang on a minute. So then I had to phone back. It was Davidstow cheese. I had to phone them back and say, okay, we're going to need quite a lot of cheese, you know, the biggest blocks to encase a whole person in. And they're like, yeah, no problem at all. And it was like, and it was like, that's a huge amount. So I had to phone them back and say, you don't want me to, you're not expecting me to buy it, are you? You know, you're okay to let me just have it. And they were like, yeah, absolutely, have it, and we'll deliver it, and we'll pick it up, take it away. And so within like half an hour, I managed to secure about £16,000 worth of cheese to encase myself in for 48 hours, which just was unfathomable. I find the sad thing is, had it been a charity or something like that, they would have probably said no. But because it was this weird kind of publicity stunt, they were like, yeah, go for it. And then, so of course,
good publicity for them as well, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, it was great publicity, and so then I had to find a venue, and then my dad was good friends with the centre manager of the Sovereign Centre in Weston.
Yeah.
So I asked him about doing it, and he was like, "Yeah, great." The original plan was, because they close overnight, was, you know, once everyone's gone, you know, I'd pop out the cheese and go home. But it became such a media storm about it that we were like, oh, I'm really going to have to do this. Otherwise, you know, it could look really bad if I'm caught like cheating. And so it was mental. It was just like the local paper definitely interested. And I don't know what they do, but I think they put like a pin on the Associated Press notice board.
Yeah.
And then all the other newspapers,
they all come running.
And it was crazy. It was absolutely good. My phone, you know, when people say, "Oh, my phone didn't stop ringing for 2 days," literally didn't stop ringing for 2 days, from like newspapers, radio stations, TV stations all around the world had heard about this. And you know, and this is when I just announced it. You know, it hadn't even happened yet. I still had like another month or something like that. And so the TV, Branston Pickle, that was it. Branston Pickle then got in touch and was like, we hear you doing this thing, you know, we'll give you money if you mention Branston Pickle, or if you take in a jar of Branston Pickle with you. It's like, okay, how much money? And they were like, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, for me at the time, it was like unfathomable money. And they said, the only thing we ask is that you tell us what newspapers do a story, what radio stations interview you, what TV stations do stuff with you, and so to keep a track of how many people, you know, that their Branston Pickle investment might be exposed to, which I thought was quite a good idea actually, because then it'd be a nice gauge to see, you know, who hears about it. And it was absolutely bonkers. For weeks running up beforehand, TV crews were coming over, some from Russia, some from China, some from Brazil, to do like oh, he's in training for being in the cheese, and they'd follow me at the gym or something like that. We'd have to then get a bit of cheese and put it under my nose or something whilst I was on the treadmill. And Scott Mills on Radio 1, he did like a whole cheese watch thing. And then when I was in the cheese, I took in my mobile phone. And it was great because I didn't have to cheat. I didn't get out at all because the phone was constantly ringing, like all around the world, a radio station. You're the cheese man. What's it like in the cheese? And then I'd have to give them like a running update on what it was like being in cheese for 48 hours. It was absolutely crazy. And then in the end, we worked out that globally, I think it was something like 235 million people heard about the cheese thing. And all it was, I just wanted to launch myself locally as Nutty Noah, kids entertainer in Weston.
And it went global.
Yeah, and it was kind of unfortunate in a way because it was just pre-internet. So it could have been a lot bigger had it been maybe 6 months or a year later or something like that. No, I don't know. But or maybe 6 months or a year later it might have been rubbish. People have been like, we want to look at videos of cats or something instead.
From a mad publicity stunt that went global, I'm going to come back to television. We've spoken, obviously, and touched upon some of the TV appearances you've made over the many years, but I wanted to mention Britain's Got Talent because it's such a huge, popular mainstream show. What made you decide to appear on the programme, and do you intend to perform on the show again?
Right, yeah. So I loved the idea of Britain's Got Talent when it first came out, and I applied for the first series, which I did the horns on. Didn't do very well at all. Lasted maybe 30 seconds or something like that. But that was sort of like, it was sort of put off then. But then once I saw a couple more seasons of it and realised how successful some of the acts that were going on it, I thought, well, this would be good for me, a career move, because it's great to do a show, but you do feel like you want to be going up the ladder a little bit. And I was sort of on a plateau where it's like, can't really, what am I doing? I'm doing the same thing. And if all I ever do is that for the rest of my life, then I'm absolutely happy. But it would be great to go up a step or two. So you think, well, what are other people doing to do that? And then, of course, Britain's Got Talent is such an obvious sort of thing. So then I reapplied a second time, doing this juggling routine with these giant beach balls, which actually Steve Royal did with beanbags in his one this last year gone. And the idea is you've got these massive beach balls and you juggle them, and it's fantastic. It's quite easy to do, but it fills such a massive space. You've got this tiny little person, if you're a long way, juggling these massive balls. And then at the end, what I would do is chuck them out into the audience, and people just punch them around the audience. It would just be like really bit of chaos for a bit. And again, with the local paper I'd been doing, they wanted to do like a follow. They were like following me, like, oh, Noah's going for Britain's Got Talent. Let's do a piece on him, rehearsing. This is what he's going to do, blah blah blah. And then the day before the audition, one of the producers phoned me up and said, "We've got a problem with your act. We think it's too dangerous. We're pulling the slot from you. You're not welcome to attend the audition." And it was like, oh my gosh, okay, why is it dangerous? They're like, well, we think the judges might get hurt if one of the balls hits them. And it's like, yeah, it's a beach ball. It's really, really light. Really light.
Health and safety gone a little bit over the top.
Yeah, absolutely. And they were like, well, no, we've made our decision. You're not coming. And so it was like, okay, all right, well, whatever. But then it was really embarrassing because then I had to phone the local paper and say, you're not going to believe this, but they've pulled the rug on the audition because of this. And they were like, right, let's have them. And then so they did this whole piece and then put it on the Associated Press board again. And then, of course, then that went a bit bonkers because, oh, man, Juggler's been banned from Britain's Got Talent because his balls are too big. And like, what was the star was like, Britain's Got Talent goes for the juggler. And it was just like, it was brilliant because it created a lot more publicity for not going on it than if I had gone on it. And so then they got in touch and were like, oh, what's all this about? Well, we didn't cancel the audition. Well, there's been some kind of mistake. What's going on? And I was like, well, you did, and I got this call and they're like, oh, just come on. And yeah, just do it. Just turn up to any of the audition sites at any time and we'll get you right on stage in front of the judges and you can do your thing. And I thought, I don't know if I fancy that now, knowing that I might have caused a bit of trouble with the production team. They said that, so, oh, don't worry, we fired that guy that did that. And it's like, well, if they have, I know they're like a family, the crew and the production team. If someone has lost their job because of it, if then I turn up being all like, right, I've come to claim my audition spot at the expense of one of their colleagues, it might not be a nice experience. So I declined that offer, but then went back the following year with a musical instrument that I made up out of Britain's Got Talent buzzers.
Yeah.
You can get these toy buzzers that you go, brr, brr. And I noticed after, what happened was my kids bought one after not going on Britain's Got Talent. And anytime I did anything, they just go, like that constantly. It's like I'm practicing a new bit, they go, it's like, all right, great. But then I noticed after a while, it was a note. It's B, if you're interested. And then so I bought loads of them and had them all pitched and then created like a Britain's Got Talent buzz offer phone.
Oh, I see.
So
Okay.
you make a little piano out of the buzzers, and the idea was to go on the show, play the national anthem on these buzzers, and then if they buzzed in to buzz me off, actually what they were really doing is playing along. So that got featured, and then got featured, I think, quite a bit. I think quite a big chunk of that got featured. And then I've sort of kept quiet, of course, but I have, to be honest, that they have been in touch again for this year, and it's kind of like, well, maybe I could give it another go. And so, so I do plan to do something, hopefully, but whether or not it'll work, I'm not sure. But yeah.
One final question before we move on to the penultimate 12 questions that I ask all Your Take guests, but you've amazingly kind of summarized your life and career, all the things you've done from live performance, magic, to TV, to stage, and there was other things we could have spoken about as well, like your involvement with the BBC as well. But I just wanted to ask you, how do you look back at your career, all the things you've done in the entertainment industry, and for anyone listening or watching this that might want to pursue a career as a children's entertainer or any form of sort of entertainment, what would your advice be to them?
Well, definitely first upmost is be yourself, definitely. And I think honesty is the most important key to any kind of performance persona. If you wanted to start doing kid stuff, I would look at YouTube videos of like other people doing kid stuff and then maybe try and adapt what they're doing. I'm not saying copy, but certain tricks quite standard within the magic community and the sort of children's entertainment world. So if you see someone doing a trick with a certain prop, get that prop, and try and work out your own routine with that, how you would present a routine with that, and then sort of go from there. Career-wise, I have to say I am absolutely gobsmacked at how my career has just happened. It seemed the harder that I tried to do something, the least likely it was going to actually happen. And so I'm not a spiritual kind of person, but in a sense, I guess what's happened is my life has just flowed, and I've just, it's like the universe has just led my life for me. And so career-wise, I'm insanely lucky because all of the good things that have happened in my life have just kind of happened. I guess there is an element of hard work in trying to get your technical ability to a certain standard, but show business isn't the kind of business where you can say, oh, but I did that. Where you can say, right, I'm going to do that, and that's what I'm going to do. But to a certain extent, that's exactly what happened with me. You can't. There's not like uh, if you want to work in a cinema, you can phone up your local cinema and say, have you got any jobs going? And if they have, then you could start a job. But if you want to, there's no way you can phone, hi, I want to be an entertainer and I want to do this, 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 and this. When do I start? You can't just walk up to the BBC and go, right, yeah, so I think I'm going to have a show. Where is it? Where do I start? It just doesn't work like that in show business. And so it's kind of the sort of thing you just got to let it happen, which in my case, I've been insanely lucky with the opportunities I've had.
This is the moment I always enjoy with your take, and we've done so many of these, and I'm always interested to hear the answers. So here we go.
Okay. I did have a look, so I'm kind of ready. I got
the curse word bit I always enjoy.
Oh, have I got a treat for you?
Here we go. So number one, what is your favorite pastime?
Music, definitely.
I can't vouch for you there. Same, I absolutely love music. And
do you play anything yourself, or?
I taught myself during lockdown, but I'm not. I can just play rhythm, basic rhythm guitar.
Yeah.
The nice simple chords, the ADEs, and so on. So I love music. Love writing songs as a pastime as well.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant.
From music to cinema.
Yeah.
What is your favorite film and why?
Okay, Top Secret. I don't know if you're familiar with Top Secret.
No.
Okay, so it was from the makers of Airplane and Naked Gun. Abraham Zucker, I think the writing team was. Okay. I just loved it because it knew what it was. It was a movie that knew that it was just a spoof movie, and it broke the fourth wall. You know, there were so many different things where the actors would look at you and go like, is this really happening in a movie? And they'd be like, yeah. And they're like, all right, okay. And then carry on. And there's bits in the background. So every time we watched it, there'd be something else you'd notice. I just love that. Absolutely love that.
Okay. Move from film to books. I want to ask you, who's your favorite novelist?
I really enjoy Jeanette Winterstone's books. I don't know if you know of her, but I kind of got into reading as a, you know, I spent years not reading, and then I got into reading, and I wanted a book that was easy to read, and she's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Orange is Not the Only Color, I think, was the one of hers that I read. Just brilliant, really, really good books. Yeah.
If you could have chosen a different profession, what would it have been?
Oh wait, I had an answer. I don't know. I would just I don't know. Or I'd have to be something I could be myself in. I'd say like one of those mascots at a football game, or something like that. In a costume, just running around course. Mr. Blobby, that's what I'd be. If I could be anything else, I'd be Mr. Blobby.
I thought initially you were going to say musician, but you kind of are a musician. So
I would say I would love to say but sort of halfway there with that one, aren't I?
Who in life has been your greatest inspiration?
So it's split between Andy Collier and Neil Austin, I would say. They were the sort of two key defining people in my career.
Do you read a newspaper? And if so, which one?
Don't read a newspaper. Don't need to be spoon-fed other people's opinions. Thank you very much.
You're a wise, wise man. What is your favorite food?
Kids' party food. It's great doing shows at kids' parties because the food is really bad for you, but it's great. All picky bits, you know. There's little bacon rasher crisps and cheese sandwiches made with grated cheese. Oh, yeah.
On a more serious note, who would you say is your favorite cultural icon?
Favorite cultural icon? Mr. Blobby.
What an answer. Best answer I think we've had so far on your take. Oh, fabulous. We're going to stick with that one. What would you say is your favorite curse word and why?
Okay, so I have an absolute fascination with what I guess people might consider the ultimate swear word. I won't say it now because people seem to get really offended by it. It's the one that begins with a C. And it's I love language. I love how fluid language is. I love how words come from the past and they morph into something else, you know, and I'm pretty sure that word came from other words or something like that. And I read something somewhere, I may be completely wrong, but I read somewhere that particular swear word didn't actually come from something derogatory originally. It might have been come from something quite positive, and it's just morphed over the years to become, you know, what some people really find offensive. And I'm really upset if you say it. But the thing that fascinates, it's just 4 letters. It's just 4 letters. You know, the word door has 4 letters. So it's kind of like, why is it then that those 4 letters in that order, well, it's obviously double O, isn't it? So if I said maybe shut, then, you know, those 4 letters in that order aren't as offensive as those 4 letters in that order.
It's interesting you mentioned that word. I remember once talking to someone at work who was talking about a manager at a workplace I was at, and he said, as soon as she said that word, she went well down in my estimation. That C word, you can't be saying that, which I thought was quite amusing. Yeah. I'll always remember that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's fascinated. Obviously, I'd never use it in the show, but yeah.
From curse words to holiday destinations, what is your favorite place or holiday destination?
I really love New York. Very lucky to have family who live in New York, and so if I can ever go there, obviously I jump at the chance. It's just amazing. It's just absolutely brilliant.
What's your greatest achievement to date?
Have you ever heard of a YouTube channel called Your Take Interviews?
No, were they?
Greatest achievement to date is being alive today, still being able to do this and having got this far into living doing what I do. I mean, that's like bonkers. It's almost like, you know, no, we're going to pay you money to be yourself and just mess around and enjoy life.
And
how crazy is that?
And the final question of tonight, we get very deep, a very deep question. How do you wish to be remembered, Noah Kelly?
I was chatting to someone about this the other day, and they were like, what do you mean, like James Dean or like Marilyn Monroe or Elvis Presley? It's like, yeah, didn't they all die really young? So it's like, I would hope to be remembered in a positive light.
Positive light indeed. And I think a really nice note to end this evening's interview. I've really enjoyed it. It's been good fun, a lot of laughter, and I like your honesty. And no, but thank you kindly for taking part on Your Take. It's greatly appreciated. It's been nice talking to you, and long may your success, your fun, your entertainment. Never easy, I can imagine, entertaining children at the best of times. I know that myself. So yeah, I tip my hat to you, and keep up the good work. And I love the musical instruments as well. But how did people find out more about your act and come and see you, more importantly?
So I have a webpage, nuttynoah.com. I'm not very good at keeping it updated, though. My Facebook page is probably where I'm hanging out most of the time, which is, again, Nutty Noah Family Entertainer. And, you know, the Twitter and TikTok and all the other usual haunts and stuff like that. So
and the YouTube videos.
Yes,
I highly
YouTube
recommend.
as well. Nutty Noah, yeah, on YouTube, yeah.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. As I said, I've really enjoyed it, and it's been interesting to hear like the many doors that have opened in your life, the different things you've done, and it's been great. It's been great to hear. It's been good to listen to, and thank you kindly for your time once again.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a real honour. Thank you.